Sorry.
This is the Public Art Advisory Committee, Monday, April 28th, 2025 at 5:15 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. The public may join in person at Brisbane Annex City Hall, Annex Conference Room, 25 Park Place, Brisbane, or may join via Zoom. And roll call, Chair Glassman. Here. Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
Park Recreation Commissioner Sewell is absent. Park Recreation Commissioner Sims is absent. Committee Member Kelstead.
Present. Hi.
Committee Member Chen.
Here.
Right.
Oh.
You're gonna bug me, I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, so, we need to, item D, remove it from tonight's agenda because, our new committee members are here. Are not gonna do this, so, can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the?
I'll make a motion to approve with modification.
Sure.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our March meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for March 17th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so on to our discussion items. Our first item of business is to acknowledge and thank Lisa.
Thank you, yes.
For the committee. You like it for me?
Well, basically, I'm not sure if you know, but the reason I left the committee was because in the future, maybe years from now, I would like to actually do art for this committee, and I can't both serve on the committee and apply for the art. So that was the reason, but I still want to be involved in finding out what you guys are doing. I find it really interesting, how this committee works, and I enjoy working with all of you. You're all very competent, and I'm just sure that you'll be great moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. So, next we're moving on to our public art fund balance report. So you have within your packet the public arts fund activities report that's provided by the finance department. Typically, we do this on an annual or biannual basis, just so that you have a sense of activity on the fund. And you'll see towards the bottom some already committed funds, one being continued restoration of the mural at Midtown Market. We're continuing to work through that process with the art folks. And the public art master plan, although we've completed that project, that's $31,000 that's remaining. Doesn't include the last invoice of $17,000. We included, if you remember with that project, we included a contingency that we ended up not using, so that the remainder there will go back into the public art fund as uncommitted funds. So the current balance is $2,670,000.
That includes their work on making it color blindness.
It's already in there. Yep.
Oh, wow. Great.
Oh. That's it.
Cool. So this review is 3/4 of the year.
Well, this
It's from
is
the beginning.
entire fund
This is from
as
the
it stands
beginning.
Currently.
From the beginning. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. Are there any questions or? Okay, cool.
So this is just a discussion. We don't have to approve it or accept it.
Yeah. Just kind of quarterly update.
FYI. A lot of times we'll be like, how much do we have?
Yeah.
And now it's like,
And now we
now we know. We can point that.
yeah. So now we're moving on to reviewing the existing public art ordinance and implementation guidelines and considering an update to ensure consistency with the newly adopted public art master plan.
Yeah, so there was some talk about making revisions or updates to the public art implementation guidelines before we started the master planning process, and then through that process, I think we learned that there would be some inevitable changes that would be warranted as part of that process, and so included in your packet are the existing ordinance and implementation guidelines, as well as you're all pretty familiar at this point with the public art master plan. So the idea today is to kind of go through, and if you have proposed edits or changes to the ordinance or the implementation guidelines based on the work that's been completed over the last several months, then we can redline a version and bring it back to a future meeting before it goes to city council for full approval. So I'll just open it up.
Do you remember specifically some of the things that we had talked about needing to revisit?
Yeah, and I think most of the conversation was about implementation guidelines, making sure that what's stated in there is in alignment with the process and policies that are laid out within the master plan. So looking at like privately installed public art and public installed public art, and making sure that the process that's described here aligns with the flow charts that were created by 9.Arts.
Right.
Because they proposed like a third alternative, right? Which was that they could engage the committee in a different way than
Right.
what our current
Right.
implementation guidelines
Yeah.
allow.
So making sure that's reflected there. And then also there's components of the master plan that if it's of interest to the committee to include those in the implementation guidelines, that we could do that also. Just talk about mission and vision and priorities. Same with like maintenance policies, deaccession policies, donated art policies. None of that's really addressed in the current implementation guidelines. So if we want to include that, then now would be the time to do so.
Wouldn't it be better to, rather than change it in the ordinance, to refer back to the master plan?
It certainly.
Rather than change the actual wording in the ordinance, you add wording to refer to the master plan
Yeah.
section, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It seems to me, rather than make everything in the ordinance match the master plan, it's better to reference the master plan because that's
Absolutely, yeah.
easier to change
Yeah,
than the
yeah.
ordinance
It's a living
itself.
document.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think that's,
Great idea.
Yeah.
you're right, Terry.
Absolutely.
Having been through this and stuff, well, the ordinance says this,
Yeah.
but the master plan says something different.
Well,
And
you're
so
right.
You keep the ordinance a little looser to match the
Yeah.
master plan,
Yes.
rather than force the master plan to match the ordinance.
Yes.
Yep. So this is like my first rodeo with something like this. So basically, it's adding into the ordinance that it.
The reference to the
that
master
reference the
plan.
master
Yeah.
plan. Okay.
And so when it talks about, the acquisition per guidelines in master plan section 3 point
And you could
whatever.
link it directly.
Yeah, link it directly.
But are there things in the ordinance or the implementation guidelines that are at odds with what's in the master plan?
Mostly, in my interpretation, mostly as it pertains to the acquisition of art.
Okay,
Because the process as it's laid out in the implementation guidelines is just slightly different than what was established in the master plan, like the flow chart of the process.
okay.
So we can just clean that language up to make sure that it's consistent.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, that makes sense.
But other than that, I don't see any plan on between them.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, like we're not-
Fundamentally, it's, yeah,
We're not overhauling it to.
no.
Okay, and what's the process from those changes?
So we would redline this. The implementation guidelines with whatever changes that we wanted, and it would go to city council.
Is that something that you would need at this point input from this committee to make those red line changes, or that's something staff would do behind the scenes?
I could do that and then bring it back, and then if there's any additional changes from there, we could implement them at that point. I feel pretty comfortable going in
Yeah.
and making sure that there's consistency between the two, and then we can do the checks and balances.
Thank you.
A couple things I will call attention
Yeah.
to that stood out to me though, so on page 2 at the bottom, where it says Public Art Advisory Committee. It says a committee made of 2 Park and Rec commissioners as designated by the Park and Rec Commission, 2 council members, and then in parentheses, it says the council's Parks and Recreation Commission liaison, which I don't think is currently.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
the-
that's true,
I
yeah.
don't think that it's really necessary for the member of the subcommittee to be the park and rec
Exactly,
liaison.
Yeah.
It's,
so we can strike that.
Yeah. I
Yes.
would-
Okay.
that is, oh, yeah.
And then I know in the past, there's been conversation about temporary art or performance art
Yeah.
not being part of this policy, so I don't know if now's the time to have that conversation, but on page 3, right under general procedure is where it talks about performance art or temporary art not being
I disagree, but
subject to this process. So,
I feel like we have discussed it.
I mean, we have,
Quite
yeah,
often,
we
quite a
have
few
discussed it in the past, but we've also had kind of differences of opinion on
Right.
what should be. Because it limits the commission of things such as like a piece of music to be performed.
While the
city event.
installation's going up or the opening for an installation.
Right, right.
Or something that's happening on the walkway. Let's say they're doing a mural and we've got the walkway going and there's a whole presentation of spoken word that goes along with the temporary piece. I mean, I think that's where we get it, like it might be interesting to explore. You know, here's an example, for instance, what if someone decided they wanted to do a piece that, you know, was going to be temporary and part of that piece was a spoken word, a ballet section, and it was only going to be there for 2 weeks. We cannot look at it because it's not a part of
Right,
our guidelines, because we say we're excluding performing arts.
right.
That's,
I mean,
that's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, because that was something, I mean, I think that was,
Yeah.
that goes back to kind of when I first came on the committee, because I asked for clarification of it.
Yeah.
And so we did have a conversation about, around performing arts and around more ephemeral type public art. So that the guidelines kind of preclude us from being able to do things like that or commission pieces.
so in the public art master plan, excuse me for not being really as into it as, know it as much as you guys. Does it address temporary art or ephemeral art?
It's right here, the general procedures on page 3.
no, you're looking at implementation.
Oh, the
guidelines, he's referring to the master plan.
In the master plan.
to the yes.
Yes.
Because
The
I
master
could
plan
see
does.
where ancillary funds could be used. You know, just some funds could be used for spoken word or performance art,
Right.
possibly. But again, I think that certainly wouldn't be on the same plane as acquiring a piece that's gonna be a long-term piece of art.
Well, yeah, because unless it's like driving you crazy on a round, someone continued to, you know,
Well-
but it's true. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, and I agree. And it's in the master plan. In the master plan, we say it, but in the procedural part, it's not noted. And so I guess that's what we have to decide, right? Am I
Well, what do
correct
you mean
about that?
when you say it's in the master? plan?
Well, when I read in the master plan, I saw that it's talked about temporary art performance based, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I, no,
No, I don't think so.
I don't- I
Performance
don't
based.
not,
think
it
not
just said temporary.
It talked about temporary art like on rotation, like
Oh,
Yeah.
you could rent or lease
Yeah.
a piece of art that would maybe be in place
Oh,
here for a year.
yeah,
Like
okay.
landscape art or
Right.
something
All
that
right,
would
yeah.
like degrade over
But
time.
performing arts and
And not- okay.
other forms of temporary art are
That
not.
was not
part
in
of the
there.
master
Okay,
plan.
then there, that's our answer.
Well,
We're not
and
doing-
maybe that's the conversation is how are we defining temporary art? Cause that's not.
I mean, if
included
it's a
here.
one-time piece, it's hard to use those kind of funds that way if it's a one-time use. But we may want to have a limited portion of the budget that could be used for temporary art, and that might be something that we put into the ordinance that, you know, and maybe a dollar amount set, I don't know, if you want a dollar amount set.
Brought up before about doing a percentage or something that was brought up in the past that like
We
it's
have.
gonna be some sort of temporary art or performing
But-
art, that it's a very limited.
And the reason it wasn't pursued is because the
Because-
implementation guidelines prevent that.
Prevent that,
So-
that's not saying we, yes,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, to me, it's like anything that's done as a performance it can also be videotaped and
Yeah.
archived and available, because like one of the things
And
that
become permanent
we
in
talk
the
about
collection.
in public art is that it has to be available to the public. And with a video, it can be up on the city's website and it's available to the public 24/7. And so it seems to me that even though the performance itself might not be permanent, the archiving of the performance through, through video or through, other means, whatever that might be, would be a way to archive it. And so I don't know, like, do we, like, I'm kind of, yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to whether or not that
Because it
would
would
take it
become
out
one-
of the realm of
right.
Part of the
being
collection.
temporary, right?
Or what, yeah, I was just thinking, there may come a time where, a piece is being shown. I mean, bye, darling. For instance, even on the stairs, let's say these artists got together. I'm gonna give an example and said, we're unveiling our work. And man, we came across a quartet that we would really like to have played, or, this other person has really done some amazing work that we would like when we unveil it. Now, I agree, they would.
Does this performance on the stairs.
Not gonna happen, but, but they may have something, but then here's a question, and I'm thinking out loud, does that mean that when they come as artists, that would be part of their proposal, part of their implementation, and we would know ahead of time? I'm just saying, I don't want to close the door on the possibility of something that may come out of that, because we, as a subcommittee, said no. And I use that as an excuse, I continue to think that of this trail that we're doing where they have that open space, and people have said, wouldn't it be great if somehow we had a place there where people could do poetry? Well, according to this, we could never do a piece there because we have said that we're not funding that.
I don't exactly agree with that. I think we could approach a project and have, once we meet the artist, have them kind of explain to us their vision. And if while that vision is happening, they're mentioning this before we commit to giving them, like, oh, everybody will describe their project. But if you include a performance within that proposal, then doesn't it become part of the proposal?
That's what I'm saying. We don't know. According to this, it's a no.
To me, that's planning an event.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
so
Okay.
separate.
Separate, okay.
that, like,
Then that's fine. Yeah, that
And
sounds
that's
great.
where that maybe
Okay.
that the separation is, event versus
I
performance.
think there's a different
But if,
pot of money that should come from.
Yeah,
to me, public art is just like, is very like defined as, a physical
Tangible.
piece, a physical, tangible.
It's not how Oakland looks at it, but it's
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
and then
think it's
with the
fine. We
video,
just can
would
go.
make it permanent or
Nor San
no?
Francisco for that matter. No, that's the video she's saying.
The
But-
video of the event that was ephemera would become.
But I also
permanent.
think of this as a living document. So
Yes.
I also think that as it goes down and things come up, there's, this is not, you know,
And that's why if we tailor the ordinance to the master
that's what I'm
plan,
saying, we can just address it at that time. I think I'm saying, I'm
Yeah.
just wanting people to keep a sensibility of what might evolve out of public art, that's all. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that
All
if
I'm
we
saying.
ever wanted to include like, I think there is this restriction on temporary. There's some kind of restriction, like not to exceed a certain percentage of the overall fund. I don't know if that's like, uh, some kind of education or like temporary art, but maybe if there was a public art, I mean, a performance component, then it would be limited to like a certain percent of the overall budget. So that way, like performance art doesn't eclipse
The art.
physical pieces in a collection, which I think is like the intention of the ordinance.
I think performance art
And the program.
is what works hand in hand with the piece. It's not one and two. They're working together, the artist. You know, you're not saying, oh, and I don't think this is about someone made a statue and someone said, oh, I want to do a performance art piece around it. It's because someone was an artist was working to create this with someone who happened to be a performance artist. Does that make
If it's
sense?
a collaboration,
It's a
then they should come
collaboration.
as a collab.
Yeah,
from
they
the
would
beginning.
honor it they would propose it as a
But
collaboration.
part of it is temporary and part of it
Yeah,
is permanent.
And
then-
part of it's
then that's
temporary and
how
part
you
of it's permanent.
qualify If
That's all.
that's
That's all
not
I'm saying.
a solid, yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it's also the piece or the part of it is like the performance, just the performance as an art piece itself. If we wanted, commissioning, as I said, like a piece of music that get to be performed, that it's like something that, you can commission, a symphony or an opera that then becomes the performance of it in Brisbane, then becomes something that gets filmed, put into the archive, but it's also something that can be sent out into the world as well and performed in other venues. But it's always with the understanding that this originated from the city of Brisbane.
the implementation guidelines right now really describe what
Yeah,
artwork or work of art is. And I suppose that you could put some of the performance portion of it into the mixed media, where it's a combination of medias. But I don't think it certainly doesn't say that dance or spoken word would be considered a piece of art or artwork.
I mean, I guess the question is, do we want to leave public art and the definition within our parameters as being something that is site specific, physical, permanent, unless, gets hit by lightning or something, but anyway, but just that our definition is
That's what
that it
I
is
think that's where
it
they're
is site
coming from.
specific, it is permanent, it's a physical object. Or if we want to include, to broaden that to include, ephemeral public art. And I mean, I guess to me, that's the essential question that we're talking about.
Well, that's kind of why I said
Yeah.
if we were to do that, I think it makes sense to put some parameters around, like not to exceed a certain amount, like 5% of whatever the budget or
Yeah.
to have it and not to exceed amount, because I think that the primary focus of the ordinance and the program is
Right.
physical
Physical,
art. And so if we want to give room for performance art, then I think we have to have some kind of, and yeah, they might propose it as a joint thing, but
That's-
like
yeah.
they could say though, 50,000, you're writing that they need to parse it out and say, well, 50,000 is going for the mosaic and 5,000 is
or
going
whatever
for
they're saying.
And they
going
can
for
do that
or whatever. But I think that like, well, you don't want to, and I'm not saying this would happen, but you have to think in like worst case scenarios. All of a sudden, you spent $1 million on performance art and you haven't, you know,
Right, I agree. Listen, I totally agree with the physical thing. I'm just saying I would hate for the committee, this subcommittee somehow to put themselves in a hole where we want something done somewhere as a public art piece, and these artists come together and they have a great idea and we love their proposal and they're like, and we wanted someone to do spoken word. Part of this piece is like a sound machine. I mean, you can go out by the bay to one of the pieces they have out there and create music. There's an art piece out there. It's an interactive art piece, and they've had people go out there and do all sorts of things with that. I would just hate for us to put ourselves in a corner to where that cannot be thought about, the possibility.
So
That's all.
That has a physical aspect.
Yeah, that has
to
a
it.
physical.
Well, that's what I mean.
Well,
That's
then,
what
but
I'm
then the
saying.
spoken
Yeah.
word would not have a physical aspect.
Right.
in the guidelines, it says 20% of the fee for a project can go to project administration and or education, publicity, dedications, and other things.
There you go.
And
dedication.
so
There you
that,
go.
So it could fall
that
into that.
could be something
Perfect.
that
They don't share the.
in the,
Yes, and that's,
bucket.
yeah,
there's
Where they
20%
share
could
Yeah.
be used for the dedication, the
Right.
ceremony.
Then that is in
performance.
connection
I
with
just don't want us to get in a corner where we go.
Well, that's in.
And there it is. So there it is.
I was like, I know that there's some kind of parameter in there.
That's what I kept
There's
saying in the
some kind of-
beginning, and you guys told me, no, that's not there. And I was like, I could have sworn.
The allocation of 20%,
Yeah,
Okay,
but the implementation guidelines are in the master plan, so.
okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So then
That's why I said in the very beginning, I thought we had taken care of that.
There you go.
Yeah, all right, we're done.
Okay.
Sorry for going off
No
the
worries.
rails, but I thought we had done it. I love definitions and understanding in different ways. You said,
I think
oh no,
it's
that was
enough. I
vague.
think it's flexible enough, like it's
Yes,
specific, but it's also
absolutely.
flexible enough in the current language.
Absolutely.
There's always a way to figure it out.
That's right.
Thank you for pulling that out. That's right, got it back on track.
Thank you.
So what did we decide?
Leave it as is.
Moving on.
We're good.
We're good.
Okay, we're.
I will
we
bring
don't
back
need to
a red
change-
line
no,
version
okay.
at the next meeting.
Okay, and we don't need to change anything.
No.
In terms of like the definition of public art. So
Right. Absolutely.
just making sure we're all on the same. Okay. So the next thing on our agenda
What comes next?
is reviewing priorities for the public art master plan, and this is kind of a hefty little document here.
Yeah.
And looking and starting to determine, what we're going to be looking at for what we want to do with these priorities and what our goal, setting out what our goals are going to be. And assuming working towards basically a timeline of when we want to implement certain things and when and my thought was to take this, and we don't have to do all of this tonight. My thought was that we would take the 1 to 3 year, the 1 to
Okay.
3 year goals
Mm-hmm.
and kind of work through as much of that as we can. And I also, my other thought and how to kind of break this into manageable chunks was to take a look at in each section, the 1 to 3 year goals and kind of work through and say like, which are the things that are our immediate priorities? What are the things that are like, that like the highest priorities and kind of talk through that. And then go to like, look at what we think should be a 1 year. And
So these aren't sorted by 1 to 3 years.
no, we would have to go through each of the color coded
They're
sections.
sorted by priority.
I
Right.
didn't get a color.
So you can have that.
No, that's okay.
I thought it might be
I don't-
easier for you to read.
So,
They're sorted by the priorities as they're
Yeah.
listed in the master plan, but we could bring back a version that sorts them by 1 to 3 years.
Well, I was just thinking if we're biting off part of the document that. Easier.
Yeah.
It'd make it easier for.
okay, does that?
That
does
sounds
anybody
great.
else
Let's go
under-
for it.
Yeah, no,
that-
good.
That's the way that my brain kind of conceptualized this the easiest,
Good,
but I'm also open to like if there's other ideas.
so then they float around.
Yeah,
Let's see, these are 1 to 3 years.
yeah, you know, because it's span community
It's
engagement, it's like,
That's right. It's,
and then increase in formula is
So,
temporary.
shall we just read through them? Is that what you want to do? And
So 1 to 3 years.
yeah, you know, take a look at like, so the blue is
Is
the
it-
priority one,
right,
which is our community engagement opportunities.
right.
And take a look at these 1 to 3 year goals. And out of this, it's like, figure out what is our immediate priority. And then what in here is something that we would like to have done at the end of the year. Now, I'm assuming that we're terming a year from March, or are we determining it from the calendar year of January first?
I would say when the master
So that
plan
would
was
be-
finished,
So it was approved in March.
so I would say from now.
Okay, so March in 2026 would be 1 year.
Wouldn't it be better to have either fiscal year or end of year instead
that's
of
what I
a
was
middle of
asking.
the whatever? End of first quarter of,
We could do fiscal year, because
Yeah.
assuming you're gonna be
Yeah.
working on this over the next couple months, then
That's
you
true.
could. And roll it out for fiscal year.
Okay, so that would be
That's
July.
better from a budget perspective.
Yeah.
yeah. That helps. You can't have a mid-March
Yeah.
date.
Okay,
so-
My
no.
brain wouldn't work that.
Makes total sense.
That's great.
July to June.
2026 to 20. So. The 1 year goals would be by July of 2026. The 1 to 3 year goals would be between July of 2026 to 2029. I think. Yeah.
I'm seeing everything as 1 to 3 years. What's 1 year?
No, there's stuff that's 7 to 10, there's.
4 to 6.
But
Four
you
to
said
6.
1 year goal.
Well, there isn't a 1 year. I'm using that as just
1
a
to
way
3.
within the 1 to 3 years. Because to break out kind of 3 things within the 1 to 3 years. Immediate priorities, 1 year goals, and then essentially 3 year goal.
Could we do like, I don't know, low, medium, high? Because then like some things
That
might be
works, too.
less than a year, some things might be more than
That's
a
what I'm saying.
year.
I was just throwing it out because that was like the way my brain was
Yeah.
conceptualizing it, but it's like low, medium, and high sounds good too.
Okay,
So the first 5 on the first page are the
Right.
1 to 3 years for expanding engagement.
Some of these are gonna be heavier on staff too, so I would say like. Feel
Yeah.
free to weigh in, because we might say, oh, all of these are high, and you might be like,
Please don't.
this is what we think we can accomplish in
So-
this time frame.
So I'm just gonna pull one out that seems easy. Develop a publicly accessible digital inventory of existing artwork.
Mhm.
How much do we have right now? We've got
Yeah.
10 pieces maybe?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
included like an existing inventory in the
Right.
master plan. There's
Like,
not
what do
that
we need
much.
to- Yeah,
And the consultants made recommendations of online platforms for that, it's essentially, so that's kind of low hanging fruit.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Good.
that's good.
I
That
mean,
could be
that's
done.
something, when you say project status, that could be an immediate, you know,
Yeah.
cause that's. I mean, it almost does, I mean, it can almost do itself.
Yeah.
Depending on does that mean you have to get you can't just put it on our website, you have to have a standalone platform?
You could do it a couple ways. So you could pay for an online digital platform that's publicly accessible. I have no idea what the costs are for that. I could bring back potential costs. Or you could do something like a Google map where you drop the pins on a Google map and people can click on it with artist information and images. We've done that for the fire hydrants, so we kind of already
Oh,
have
there we
an
go.
understanding of that. That's how Redwood City does theirs.
Love it.
we could even categorize this as like rank status, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Mhm.
If, in, even
In
that.
priority.
Yeah, but don't forget, we've also got five different priorities that all have 1 to 3 year goals.
But you
Oh,
could
so-
rank them.
Yeah.
Within,
Yeah.
Within
could
each
say-
category.
Yeah.
we can
within each
rank.
category, like,
sense.
so like, it would be easy to develop a public, like one, that if you put that as 1, because that's like already almost finished in process,
Mhm.
and host a community unveiling, like we know that's
Yeah,
Gonna happen.
gonna
gonna
happen,
happen.
easy, obviously.
So 2.
And then,
There's also, the post monthly updates to the city's public art landing page.
Yeah, that's kind of an ongoing.
Which I imagine you would wanna do now that we're in a project.
Mhm.
So that would be like, easy to make 3.
So are we good with just doing a Google pin drop?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
It's easy.
for all of our archived artwork and old images from, the last 50, 60, 80 years or whatever is already archived on our website as well. So if we could tie that maybe as a link off of our public art page, to view, past, photos and
That's a
archived
great idea.
things to see where current art is placed in town, then it'd be the Google Maps, or maybe
Yeah.
something like that. That way.
Free is good.
Free is very,
Thanks.
yeah.
Free is good.
Good, and I'm so happy you know how to do that.
Yeah, then
So,
start it.
so on the first item, host a community unveiling for the new public art at the Alvarado Street. That's going to happen when the project's done.
Yes,
Yes,
So that's,
Yeah,
that just
Well-
needs to be scheduled.
it'll happen by the end of the year.
yeah,
so why don't we just put project status third quarter?
Oh, yeah, that's realistic.
Yeah.
oh, there you go.
I guess it'd be fourth quarter, sorry.
Okay.
I don't know.
Ambitiously, it could be the third.
Could we just, how about we say fall? Fall or, so fourth quarter, I'm gonna go, what's the quarter? No,
Mhm.
You can say fall, I'll say fourth quarter.
thank you. Fall, I'll know, I'm like, what, how, I thought
Yeah.
we were going July as the beginning.
Oh, well.
Wouldn't that then make that the first quarter? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
it's an art brain.
So,
I know.
since I'm not color
That would-
coordinated, let's
You're
just
right.
go down the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if we can. So developing a digital survey. Is that something we just want to,
We're survey heavy right now.
I know.
I think we need a rest on the surveys for a while.
Yeah, we did the
I,
survey.
yeah, I kind of feel
and
like.
we've already done
it
one.
could be just leave the
Yeah.
online mechanism
Facebook.
for people to weigh in, which is gonna be a comments page of some sort on the website.
Somebody would have
Isn't there
to
an email link
monitor
to the public art committee that if
Yeah.
people have
comment.
comments, they can
That's
just
already
do
there.
that? That's
Yeah.
already on the public art.
That's what I'm
page.
saying, it's already there.
Right.
I would
So
say
that's different than a digital survey.
If we're trying
Yeah,
to come
that's
up with our next location,
Then we
Right.
would,
Then-
we're saying like, we already have something in process at Firth, we already have the stairway, we already have another stairway coming up. If we wanna do something else besides whatever is already ongoing, then we could say, okay, the options are behind the bathrooms at the park, or, Crocker Trail, or here, visitation.
Mini surveys.
visitation.
Yeah.
Right, let us know, what's your rank choice of these
But-
3 options?
Surveys,
Would
but not
be-
full on.
Would we be putting in that survey or mechanism that do you want a mural here, a sculpture there? or
We
a
could figure it out
there?
then.
yeah, we
but
do it then.
Depending
So
on,
you're just saying you want the doodle poll of the, availability to send out about this? Or should it be something
When
that,
It has to be that
when
detailed.
we're ready to do one?
When we're ready to do it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we know, okay, we're wrapping up, like staff's gonna know, we're wrapping up this, and then
and this
in
committee,
3 months, we'll be ready to start looking at our next thing. So then you already start circulating.
So that's subject to project
Project
need,
specific.
Yeah,
yeah,
subject to project
it's
need.
on project need, and that's when we would do another survey.
Cause we're trying to,
Yeah.
priority summarize, and that's
Yeah,
why
that would
I'm
be
just trying to
public
get an idea of what
engagement.
you guys mean. I'm not trying to.
I would
direct-
say there's no
No.
exact, like, it's hard to say exactly when, like, it's as needed,
Yeah.
right, on that one.
that's what I'm saying, I don't think we need to be so
One a year.
directorial about it.
And also, if
And I think
people
there's
have
also,
so
if we-
many comment online, maybe
It's an
that
on-
would trigger
I
something.
think if we're also also within the monthly updates of what's going on, I mean, you've
Yeah.
got a mechanism in there to say, this project is wrapping up, we're considering locations for the next project,
So,
check out,
okay,
weigh in on that.
so to develop an informal and flexible network of arts advocates. develop an informal or sort of
That's
contradictory.
That one will be,
It's more compile a list of, or develop a network of arts advocates.
when we have art projects, it's.
So that's subject to need too.
Yeah.
Isn't Beth kind of functioning in that way? Like she has some kind of network of artists and you've been telling her, hey, we have something open,
Yeah.
like send it out, cause she's been, I've heard through the grapevine that she's been helping the city, you know, hey,
Mhm.
this thing is going on.
Right.
So,
Good.
um,
So that's also kind of project specific as needed.
Yeah.
Subject to
absolutely.
project. Yeah.
and maybe we want to have, I think we should evaluate how we want to structure that, like Beth has she has a network, you send it to her, she can spread the word.
Mhm.
Is that how we wanted, we don't have to discuss this now, but is that how we wanted to do it? Or do we want to have like 10 artists in town and we say this is our network and we're sending it and we're saying send to your people?
I think it
Yeah.
should be sent to everybody that we
Everybody
can.
that we want, and I think she should be part of it.
Yes.
But it should go through the regular
So if
channel.
we want to look at this a simple way to do
Regular
this
channel.
Yeah.
is on the page saying we're looking for people who want to be involved. And I was trying to think of, you know, like transmitters of information. If you have a group or if you have a group of artists, if you give us your email, we will
Spread the
send in,
word.
help you spread the word. Give us your email,
Ambassador.
boom, ambassador, that's the word.
Public art.
And do it that way.
Yeah, I like it.
You know, we also have
Art
the resource of
ambassador.
ecology and their artist in residence program.
That's right.
Right down the street, and Deborah Monk has an incredible network. I mean, I was a student artist in residence there. I get emails from her all the time about there's this opportunity in the Bay Area,
Well,
there's this opportunity.
There's the open mic in Viz Valley.
Yeah.
When that does that
So-
whole thing.
So I think, I mean, my feeling on this is that I would rather have it be something that was not vested in one particular
Oh,
person.
I think
And
so
that it
too.
is
Yeah, I
something
think
that,
so
that
too.
we do.
But that's.
Can I-
be a nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do this too. We can, I'm sure
Yeah.
we also all have people we could think of
Yeah.
that will just bring the powers that be, which I guess is you, the emails and a little bit of information and say, this is when we send information out, can you make sure this person's included?
So I would just
Right.
have the language,
Mhm.
if you're
That's my
giving
to-do.
a monthly update, right? You have always the language there every time.
Mhm.
Would you like to be on our list to know
Mhm.
about public art?
wanna
Would
be
you
an
be
ambassador.
ambassador? And would you be open to
Ambassador
spreading the
for
word about
everyone.
future projects?
Yeah.
If so, fill out this Google form. And it links right there and it creates a database that you already have it in a sheet,
And they're
ready to go.
included.
Boom, boom,
Boom,
boom.
boom, and it's done.
And
Symphony of Excel.
And so it's just ongoing. You don't have to put a lot of effort because it's slowly people populate it on their own.
So then we're gonna, going down the list, we're gonna skip anything that says 4 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 to 10, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So we're going down
Yeah,
to
Specify.
specify what's included within temporary pop-up art. And
There you go.
the city will decide whether to pursue serendipitous, community-driven artwork such as the spray painted
I
dragon.
knew it was in there.
Just a little bit different though, actually, when you read it.
Use the art selection scorecards in the appendix to support decision making. Temporary pop-up,
This is rogue art.
including
Correct.
Yeah.
rogue art.
Of you to determine.
Determine how.
Right. And also just to, this is the increase in formalized temporary and educational public art projects.
That's the priority.
That's the priority, priority 2. Increase in formalized temporary and educational public art projects.
Doing wrong.
So that's what this group.
We choose spaces for people to do.
Well, for example,
No,
like the dragon came in,
But that was on someone else's property.
that's
and
on city
so-
property and staff perceived it as
Oh, I thought it was
the
on the
skate, no,
building,
the skate park.
the skate park.
So
Oh,
staff
right.
perceived that very quickly as graffiti, like I called Clay and I was like, there's a graffiti dragon. It's sick. Don't touch it. Let the public art committee like discuss it before
Somebody.
Public Works.
I
takes
thought it
off.
was on the building of the private
No,
building.
no.
Oh,
No,
that's
they
my
don't.
mistake. Oh,
That gets painted over. They can't do that.
Yeah.
So,
but not, the dragon was not on
Yeah,
a
but it
private
was
building.
on
That's what I'm
our
saying.
city
I didn't
property.
realize that. Yes, then we need to be clear. The dragon, I thought it was,
there's
the-
another dragon.
There's
There was some other
there's another
stuff,
dragon.
but I don't think it was.
Yeah, there's only one on the wall.
Anyway,
anyway,
so
yeah,
I think that we should try to sort that out. real quick,
absolutely.
Decide
because-
whether, yeah, what is and what isn't.
Well,
Which one isn't, do we?
I mean, with-
Like it or don't like it?
Yeah, because if you don't like it, you erase it. And
That's
who
what we
decides
need.
if you don't like
Will you
it?
use this
Well, it
art
comes to the
selection
committee.
scorecards in the
Yeah.
appendix to help support, you go through to help determine, is this art or is
Right.
this?
That's what, that
Okay.
we put together that scorecard, so we have the background to,
So what do we need to do here?
Because we can't control it if it's rogue art.
What is,
Well,
what
this is, I think a lot of this is just basically coming up with kind of this is not like there are specific actions. I mean, a lot of this to me looking at.
this
it
is
seems-
ongoing.
Yeah, it seems as if it's A, ongoing, and B, longer term than like an immediate priority. This is like falling into like a year two. A lot of this.
Will specify what is included and how the city will decide whether to
Yeah.
preserve the art. Like, I think that that to me is a policy that requires conversation.
Yes.
And then we've also got like pilot a pop-up art series. We've got initiating a rotating mural program. Install painted fire hydrants in newer development, which is an actionable action item rather than a policy. And then plan and design an educational artist in residence program structure.
Oh, some of these feel like more like longer
feel like-
term.
Yes.
Yeah, these are, a lot of these actually feel like they are like, should be in the 4 to 6.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Because
the
I-
artist in residence.
I think the artist in residence
Yeah,
definitely 4 to 6.
Yeah, that needs to be true.
Do we just edit our master plan
Yeah.
right off? Because you know what's gonna happen.
That's why I
Someone's
said it's a
gonna
living
say,
document.
you were supposed to do this in 1 to 3 years.
No, it's a
and
goal.
It's a goal,
You're-
it's a
We're
goal.
not married to any of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a goal.
So- So
I think install painted hydrants though, that's easy and
That's
quick.
easy
Yeah.
and it's
Right,
gonna
but I-
happen.
Yeah, that's what I
more-
was saying though, like that when I
One.
said like that's an action item.
That's a one.
But other things are more development of policy.
Right, so if there's a priority there,
Right.
what is it? Is it identifying what the criteria and decision-making process is around pop-up rogue art?
I think we
Yes.
need
Yeah.
to know what
Yeah,
that
we
is,
do.
because I
Yeah.
mean,
We need to.
Yes, it's got
Correct.
and that's
You
something,
already have one piece that's
Yeah.
there that we just
Right.
decided.
arbitrarily
staying.
decided stays, but
Yeah.
what if another piece pops up? We wanna be prepared to
I agree.
Yeah,
address
yeah,
that.
I
And
think
to
so, yeah.
have some
Guidelines,
criteria
yeah.
around.
I mean, certainly, and I'm sure
Yeah.
your scorecard goes into this, that certainly, you know, the regular tagging of Timu, or whatever their name is,
But that's, I mean, there's a
Is-
difference between tagging and
is-
street art.
is not
Yeah.
art.
I mean,
Yes.
there's very definitely, like, to me,
Right.
there is a definition between tagging and.
So maybe that's.
Right,
So
but
then
that's what we have to
Yeah,
put
yeah,
into the
that's sort of- yeah,
scorecard. That's what,
Right.
yeah.
We
Yeah,
have to do
correct.
something, we probably need to put on an agenda to
Yes.
really
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
discuss
That's where we.
where it's appropriate.
So what that tells me
Is 3.
is that when we
Just
look at this rogue art,
misunderstood.
is that it's a priority to put on a discussion
Yes.
for our
Yeah.
agenda.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's where, that's how that.
And which
happens.
locations are appropriate.
Right.
Yes,
And
Cause that's
so
really.
that's a
on the side of City
discussion that,
Hall.
Right.
that will happen in the 1 to next 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
So that seems like a priority in this. section.
yes, and that's something we need to do. So that's like a 1 in that priority.
Thanks for, yeah.
Um,
Folder, you know, we can put our
Yeah.
parameters around
But
it.
then
well,
that
yeah.
would, when we
So that'd be a good part.
affiliate appropriate location, that could work with the next one with creating space for people to do this blog art.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, to me, it's like I'm looking at these first three and seeing that, you know, that the policy on that is the first thing, and then the
Mhm.
pop-up art series, and then the rotating mural program.
Right,
Yeah.
because then we
So,
have the,
yeah,
Yeah,
we have the
rotating.
clarity on where it's
Right.
all going.
Mhm.
like, to me, that kind of,
Okay.
And when you talk about it, the skate park, you're talking about the wall that faces the street, or are you talking about the wall that faces the interior of the skate park?
They were referring to the outside part, right?
I think we first, when you,
Around the corner, you see that big blank wall.
yeah.
The wall on Old County, you mean?
Mm-hmm, is that what they were referring?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
And then I think, the fire hydrants, to me, that's something that
That's
should be, that's easy. and I
So
think
It
that
says
should be
within
one.
the skate park, though. Initiate a rotating mural
Mhm.
program within the skate park.
Yeah, within, not.
well, that's what I thought, yeah.
Maybe that means where the dragon is currently.
Can we do it on the actual
no, the mural, not the fire.
equipment?
You could, I don't know that you would want to.
Oh, I think,
Probably not on
Get-
this one, but on, there's so many.
Because so many
separate
skate
walls.
parks are
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
separate
Like, I think-
walls,
I
There's
think
a lot of short walls all over.
like on the rail
Yeah.
that's in there, there's that, triangular shaped wall
I-
beneath it. I mean,
I
there's
think
other
there needs a
opportunities for
special
art
kind
in
of
there if
paint.
you
I think,
want.
yeah, I think you would just want to, for now, just consider walls.
The walls.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there's something that happened with the skate park underneath the 101 that used to be in the city down
Yeah.
there.
Cause I'm like, that's covered.
On 13th, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they had to close it down because, if I'm not mistaken, there's some kind of paint or whatever they decided that got put on that without permission.
Yeah, and
Became dangerous.
also something,
Okay.
I
that's
don't know.
also something
Slippery
like
or
going,
something.
Does-
going
yeah.
back to like a prior conversation we
Lead
had,
base.
is
Or
that,
some, I don't,
that we have, I mean, we have a stakeholder population there that will, that, should be weighing in
Yeah.
on what parts of the skate park will not interfere with their enjoyment of the skate park.
that's, yeah,
So like the railings would be, if we're talking about that, and it's like, no, that might actually have an impact on their ability to use the skate park. So when we get to this, to the mural thing, that it's like, that's where we bring in the stakeholders.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Yeah, and what they would find acceptable.
Right.
And if
Right.
we're
And we
looking at, that, we're giving each one a number, right? So we're doing number one, the specify temporary as number one.
Mhm.
And number two, comes. I want
One
to,
A, one B,
okay, that's what I'm asking.
I think.
Yeah.
Because,
It'll come out of that.
yeah,
All right.
that's what, I mean, that's what makes sense.
So then on installing fire hydrants, I think we need to
Those-
start
Yeah, those are easy.
with outreach
For the HOA.
to HOA, because I don't think they're gonna want it.
So,
There's one at Mission Blue though, right?
we
We can do
post
that.
the fire hydrant
Yeah.
restoration and painting event every 2 years. So we're not scheduled to host it again until 2026.
Mhm.
So we have a little bit of time.
So,
if we
yeah,
want
let's
to
put that-
align that effort there.
Okay.
So
Cool.
that's a
So
number
your point-
3.
That's a no-brainer. I don't think. Unless we're talking about the hydrants on a specific, Health Peak may not want it on their property.
Well, like, the last time we did the fire hydrant painting event, we painted 2 of the hydrants that are closest to the marina.
Mhm.
Right. The
So,
marina
That
yeah.
makes sense.
our parks and we can just do what we want to
Yeah.
do. I think that the ridge is gonna be a push.
Yeah.
To get them to
Yeah.
want anything except maybe at,
At the
some
entrance.
corner or something, but even that might be sketchy for them.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe this is a year 2.
Yeah,
effort.
that's what it sounds like.
I'll put it at number 3. All right, move it on.
Okay, so
City-
then we're
there's
getting
city
into
Purple now.
I wonder.
Am I missing it?
Sorry.
Blue.
No, that's fine.
Angel asked about ownership of Blacksburg Celebration. They're city hydrants.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to figure out, so weighing it like, how much it, say doesn't HOA have.
Yeah, that's
What
not
is
thinking,
the-
like, why are you
It's a great idea.
telling
It's a
me
Good
what
question.
I'm doing? This is my property, this
True,
little
but-
tiny thing.
True. Install and unveil the Alvarado de San
Okay, hang
Benito.
It's really
So we're
hard.
moving, so we're moving on
Yeah.
to
To
priority
purple,
3,
yeah.
which is to increase public art in Brisbane's park and trail system.
So
there's
we
only
have
three
that.
1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
In there.
And that'll happen.
That's number
Never
one.
heard.
Yay. And we have the fire hydrants here again.
That'll be easy.
So that
Yeah.
goes with the other one.
Mhm.
That was number 3. In terms of the 1 to 3 years.
Yeah, that becomes year 2.
So I wonder if like this public art funds for discovery and functional art at Crocker Trail should really coincide with
With
like,
them, how can we do anything until it's there?
well, we're trying to get like, you know, we just did some funding, right? Some approval
For
for
the
study,
environmental study.
whatever. So,
That's about a 9-month process.
so I almost feel like we should return to this after that and
Yeah.
figure out like,
This
Well,
is,
and it already
Can I-
says, even though it's a priority of 1 to 3 years, it talks about incorporating over 5 to 10 years.
right,
So
Yeah.
shouldn't that be moved down the bucket list?
I think what it's,
is
what
it
it's
just
looking at
earmarked?
just laying the groundwork and kind of getting, I mean, this is how I'm interpreting.
Or just get the project
That
started,
is
but
like-
nothing will happen.
Yeah, we're not delineating like these are the projects that we want. You're talking about that we have an environmental impact, which is gonna be done when?
9 months. I just met with them today.
2026.
Okay, so that's, so even looking at like earmarking funds, it's probably gonna be a year 2.
what happened to the people who were gonna do it before that we had all those things?
They
There's
did
stuff,
part of
they
it,
did
but then
part
they
of
have to
it.
do more because of lighting.
So,
Making-
earmarking, I think that's like okay, we're gonna set aside, we're gonna ensure there's this amount of money
Right.
in the fund for that.
Right,
That to me, I think is like an easy, and we can adjust it. Maybe it's like we would have to go to council and say, the public art committee would like to set aside
Yeah, and
$350,000 or whatever it is.
you could have that conversation in the short term because
Yeah.
the master plan calls for public art. It's already laid out within the master plan. And you could say, we want, a painted crosswalk here or a sculpture here or, discovery art here. You could identify some of those things and say, okay, we want to dog ear $200,000 for public art on Crocker Trail or whatever. I think
Right.
that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah,
here.
they just want clarity.
Having a preliminary conversation about
Alright.
the
And
intent.
that,
We can do that pretty easily, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
So then that brings us to priority 4 stuff, which is,
installing public art at scale.
Starts with
That-
develop and promote.
oh yeah, it's in that,
yes, okay.
And there's.
I think that needs to be
Yeah.
put off until we know what we're doing with
Yep.
the B of A site.
yes.
So I think that
probably
goes lower on the
Wait, for what?
priority.
The entrance sign.
Oh, sorry, I guess I must have missed it.
right there at the
It's
bottom.
at the
Oh,
bottom.
okay, sorry.
And is there any?
Yeah, I
timeline
agree.
in Figuring that out.
No.
Well, we're in process of getting, figuring out what's going there, like, we're in the process of getting public opinion right now.
Yeah, but there's
So-
no timeline. It's not like we have a drop dead date.
So this might be,
Well, do have a date as a council priority where we're going to determine what is happening with those 3 buildings in the next 2 years.
No, not the 3 buildings.
Well, that's
Yeah,
big
makes
enough.
BFA.
B of A
So-
site for the interest of town.
Yeah,
but what it.
we're like for it to be completed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, who knows?
No. I think, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
the
who knows?
question is like, do we have to wait for it to be completed before we put?
That's the-
Once we know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen
Be-
there, we can
No.
move
I don't think
ahead
so.
with the gateway art,
Right,
but.
because Gateway Art has nothing to do with the Bank of America building. The
Right.
Bank of
But because that
America
would be
building
that
could
would
be
a
there for 100
flexible
years.
location.
Unless you wanted something on the building.
Yeah, but that could always come later. But I think the initial understanding of this
Yeah.
was at that intersection, what was the gateway art, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
think
You see what, you know what
So
I'm
it's
saying?
still
Okay.
flexible to
Sounds
start.
from what Madison's saying that this should also be like a 2026.
That was.
At
I'd
least.
say 26, 27.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
like year 2 or
That's
year.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
we should move through the process, the public process. and determine like, is it gonna be housing? Is it gonna be,
But, you know,
Public
depending on what
space.
it's going to be, that could change the roadway there.
Right.
Oh, if you.
Oh, I
yeah,
see
you
what
could
you're
make
saying.
different sections
There'd
of
be
it,
different entrances, there'd be different fire.
Oh, cut
yeah.
out.
That,
mean,
that
there'd
could
be different-
change the landscape.
I
for
mean,
sure.
until we know what's going there, I don't think we can do a big thing unless it's not located on that corner.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's located on some other corner, that'd be a different thing. but-
Christmas tree lot.
Yeah, but then that's another.
But, and we also, yeah. I agree. I think when it comes out for proposals, it would be more important and exciting to have an artist or the organization go out and say, in this area is
What would
where
they
we want,
propose?
and let them propose and see what they come up with, as opposed to us designated. That, so I agree. Let's wait.
Anyway, it's still a ways away.
Yeah, so I agree. We have to
John, did we
I
say
think
2
the,
years?
the
Just wait.
wayfinding
Right.
or
Okay, hang on, we haven't quite finished. So, okay, so yeah, that's a 2 to 3 year, okay. All right,
so wayfinding, are you guys just talking about signage that's artistic for wayfinding?
well, yeah, I mean, we have wayfinding and placemaking, which is,
I think that was referencing like, when you enter into town, you see like, oh, farmer's market that way, or marina this
Yeah.
way, or also the sign that's outside of the post office, that's like City of Stars, like any of the non-traffic signage that is city signage, and looking at kind of updating the branding behind those.
Would
Oh.
placemaking also be like along the marina or along Pepper Trail
Yes.
or telling like
Correct.
historical things about
The area.
Native Americans
Yeah.
and but having
Correct.
that be like a little less.
And I think that's a much later. I don't even think that should be in the 1 to 3 years.
I don't know. That would.
fine leaving it.
Oh,
in 1 to
God,
2
you're the
years, I
best.
think
Thank
it's
you.
like a 2 to 3.
Well, you
years.
could take it area at a
sorry.
time, like we could do visitation now.
Right.
Yeah,
You want to-
definitely, you could pick different place, definitely.
You can
Visitation.
carve out
Yeah.
specific projects that are relative to.
Yeah.
Public
location.
library,
Main.
Or what
street
about replacing the
thing.
whole wood sign?
pool.
What signs that.
Oh, so we don't care if it's the same everywhere. It can be sectional.
I think so.
And this is
Okay,
also
that's
just
fine.
creating
That's
time
fine.
for it.
That's, yeah.
So it's not actually doing
Yeah,
it
right.
yet.
when do
It's
you
not
wanna have
when
that
you-
conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should call contracts.
okay, so when do we think we should have this conversation?
I think it's in the 2 to 3 year range.
Yeah,
Easily,
that's
we
what
could, I
Yeah.
mean. And it could be done by sections, by first identifying where you think that it's appropriate. I know. A year or so ago, that staff came up with, or an intern came up with different fonts for. Different angles or signs, and that was, piggybacking on the signs that got removed that the chamber had done.
Oh, yeah. I would say that maybe we could leave it a little open-ended because I do know
Yeah.
Economic Vitality is really working on trying to invest time and effort into visitation, which I think is like connected to the next one. And so as like in my other role, working with that committee and kind of giving some feedback, it's really clear that like there's an interest in investing in visitation. I suggested, why doesn't the Economic Vitality like work closely with public art to see if there are funds that can overlap and achieve these 2-for-1 trade, 2-for-1
Yeah.
outcomes, like if we want to partner with a local business, like it says here, and we want to, we're all thinking Crocker, but there's also plenty of buildings on visitation. And do we want to partner with those buildings, or do we want to put things on visitation that help and tell people what visitation has to offer, but could be done and accomplished through public art funds? And you get that, that bonus effect.
Are you good with it being year 2, 3? Or do you think?
Are they working on
do you
it
think
right
needs to be
now?
Later, or do
I-
you think it needs to be earlier?
Well, I think that, you know, should economic vitality come to maybe there is like the possibility of a meeting where Mitch might come and say, this is what I'm looking to do. And then at that time, the committee can move that forward as appropriate if the rest of the committee feels that it. But I wouldn't say like, I think it's more open-ended.
I said come, I
But-
agree.
So on the identify local business host, is that something we'd want to partner with
Yes, I think so.
with that group? And if he's working on it now, would we want to put that invitation out to him now to see if he's interested in having anybody that, you know, would be able to be put on the list to want to host a mural or?
How far,
Regard.
how far along is that?
It's not far along at all. I would say like one of the big priorities is to gather almost like a merchants association, but a group. Bring together visitation business owners to have just a first meeting and say, what can the city do to improve visitation and, you know, maybe what type of things do you think that we could do that would invite more business for you? And based on that response, you know, then we could figure out what the opportunities are. And then I think that at that point, then economic vitality would engage with.
Then we're
Yeah,
talking
so
2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Month to
Because
a
I,
year?
yeah.
No,
I'm
no,
thinking, I
2
mean,
to
we've got
3 years,
stuff- we've
yeah.
got a lot of stuff.
she's
on
still
our
gotta
plate
get-
Right now.
She's gotta get all that.
Yeah.
So it sounds
too.
like if that's, like, we don't have to extend that that invitation.
No, it'll
Yes,
it'll
yeah.
come on its
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't say exactly when it will.
No.
So I would love for us to be open to,
It'd be good for Mitch to know that there's that want for the public art committee to be able to help in that vitality effort.
well, we could I mean, Noreen could let Mitch know in the same way that we let Public Works know, like, hey, we'd like to establish an ongoing
Yeah.
relationship.
Right.
If you're interested, you can come, we can discuss this at a meeting.
Right.
And maybe ask some questions, but just so that Mitch can be thinking of public art as a opportunity in the things that he comes across.
Yeah.
And I think now that like Public Works is looking for that, the opportunities are presenting themselves, and I think the same thing will happen.
Yeah.
With economic vitality
Oh,
also.
and this one about, him, meeting with other businesses, say, for example, just on Visitation Ave, I mean, right there, like, that's something where we could go and join one of those meetings and talk to them about the public art master plan, which is that third one under priority 4.
Right.
And
Yeah.
things like that. Could put something on the backyard of Mamma Mia, their outdoor area, or,
Yeah, I mean, I know Madhouse would like let the
Madhouse
city
art.
paint a mural
Yeah.
on the building. But then we have to also talk about like what,
Yeah,
I
we have
think
to talk
we
about
have to
that
have a
Yeah, yeah.
conversation about like
What
how much
is the-
investment do we wanna make
in
on
private
private property?
property. Yeah.
And that's a big thing that, I mean,
I
we talk
agree.
about this vision of Crocker and putting all these murals on Crocker, which is again, private property. And what are the parameters? Like, you can't paint over it. Is there a certain period of time? Who's
Right.
responsible for
Are they gonna be a
maintenance?
part of the funding process?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a big question. I agree.
Well, and
And how much do they-
policy level conversation too, that we didn't really have as part of the master planning
Right.
effort.
Right.
Policy around installing or paying for.
Private, public
property.
But that, I think that's all part of these priorities. So that could be something that we can begin to discuss
Yeah, you could talk about it
Yeah.
now. Have those conversations.
on a, put it like in a,
Yeah,
fourth
we're
quarter
kind of- I mean, we're kind of
agenda item.
what we're kind of setting out right now is like, over the next year, what are we gonna be
Would we
discussing
wanna
at our?
Yeah, and we should make that part of one of like, yeah,
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter.
I would be interested to see
Is that
what.
the fall or the spring?
Which is really quarter of the fiscal year.
So I think this like to set up for that, it would be interesting to see if other cities have policies around.
Yes.
Yeah.
This and how they do it. And that could give some insight. I know that's like your least favorite,
Well,
staff direction, but I
What is
think it
everybody
could
else
help.
doing?
I think it
I
could
don't
help.
wanna do it unless somebody else is doing
What
it.
are they doing?
That's a.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
We do it,
You know.
maybe faster.
There are quite a few people.
Because I'm
That don't
sure
live here,
other
live other
committees
places,
have
I
really
know.
come across this
Franklin
and
City has done it on private property, like murals on private property, so I can ask their liaison.
and it may be like a matching, it may be like we only earmark like this amount of funds
Yeah.
or whatever.
Okay.
And I think some cities will do it where there's a, special district that this block to that block, we want to encourage murals.
Yep.
So we're doing a special project for
Right, right.
Yeah.
blah,
You
blah,
could do
blah.
that for visitation.
Yeah, I just did a mural walk in the Mission. There's certain alleys
Yeah.
where it is
Mhm.
encouraged
Yeah.
and written into actually, if you buy this property, the face of your garage, with your approval of whatever maybe the design possibly is, it will be decorated at all times. And
Yes.
to me,
On the painted lady.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to move in there.
It was really.
That's what I
interesting.
want. I want a mural.
Yeah, but you'd want heart and flowers and
But the-
Mickey Mouse ears.
Yeah, but it's.
They
Right.
want to be very
Short
heritage.
And you'd get, Darth Vader and Jesus.
We are at six
Yeah.
thirty.
Okay.
Oh,
So do we want to finish this?
I
This
think we
last
make sure we
one.
We only have one left.
So any public comment that you have, maybe along the way too.
so we're almost done.
We only have one more one.
Alright,
yeah,
one more
already have
priority.
it.
More
Yeah.
section of 5.
Yeah, what was there, the priority 5?
This is strengthening relationships
Any
with
private
developers.
votes in public terms.
So
Very good. Huh?
it's already, the
It's already
policy is
there.
already, the checklist is written.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of giving it to Public Works to give to any report to our city manager.
Planning.
So that it's communicated directly at the beginning of the process.
Yep.
Mhm.
So that's,
Same, share public
Well,
announcement, same.
wouldn't
Yep.
take much to do.
As well as share the public art master plan. We already did that.
The
That's.
biannual meetings with key stakeholders, I think that's where you ask for a partnership, maybe with economic vitality. And introductions to maybe new businesses coming in.
Well, that's inviting someone, putting it on the agenda to invite.
Right.
Yeah, and
Fire hydrants again,
With, with new private development. I mean, again,
Valence
that's
is not
something.
happening for a while.
That's as it comes up.
Yeah. And the hiring a consultant would be on a project basis too.
Yeah.
yes.
See, there we're done.
Okay. Yay.
Boom.
Okay, so.
Hold this one, right?
Yeah, so well, actually, so for for our next one. Like, put together the list, like what we.
Priorities.
With for our year 1 to 3.
Mhm.
And kind of then we can start looking at what we need to break down out of it. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Hang on.
okay. We have concluded the business portion of our meeting.
Okay. Well, public comment. Would you like to throw in
just a
anything?
bit,
Yeah.
When you guys were talking about temporary art, I definitely remember us having the conversation of rotating the mural in the skate park so that, if somebody says, I hate this image, it's gonna change. And, I think that's a great way of keeping that fresh. Anyways, that was just an attitude. Also the group of getting the art. We were talking about some kind of artist group receiving whatever this group is putting out to the public. And I definitely think not making that just through one person, but making it. Even you could even form, or I don't know, the city could form this, or this committee could form this, Friends of Brisbane Art. That it becomes its own group,
Yeah.
like Friends of the Library,
Mhm.
and just a booster group,
Great idea.
Yeah.
Could be a Facebook group,
Yeah.
except none of us could post. Or write it.
Noreen can
And I
post.
just wanted to emphasize
When there's a project.
what a great idea it is to use art as a way to revitalize.
Downtown.
businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, making our downtown walkable, making it interesting for visitors to go down, whether it's benches, murals. Ways of drawing
Engaging.
people into town through art.
Signage.
And I was just actually gonna say with that, I talked with, Sue Cochran today, and the G3 are gonna actually repaint the front of
Or,
Mia,
yeah.
in the next couple weeks or so. They're actually down pretty low.
That's
on their
you.
money.
That's me.
Oh, yeah.
But that's, when you
It's
look at
different.
Mamma Mia, it's not a lot to paint.
Yeah.
There's a couple of.
But it's just, it's really thoughtful and nice. Maybe they'd be great to put a mural on that.
They don't have very tiny
Very tiny.
pieces.
But
of
maybe
wood.
in the back. Yeah, but then that would be when.
Oh, Mamma Mia.
Mama.
Oh, I thought it was
Oh.
Melissa's. No, it's Mamma
No,
Mia.
It's Mamma Mia, yeah.
Yeah.
You could just do pizza.
I was gonna say, you get like pizza, flying saucers.
Okay.
Don't look at me like that, Terry.
That could be an elementary, that could be a middle school project. I mean, that means you have to go into the building and buy something to enjoy the art. There's something about that.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about
No, it would
that.
just be in the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something about that,
And I haven't received any.
And they can do their own.
Then you can
art.
remove it.
They
Huh?
can do their own. art.
It's something removable. You could
So
put it there
our
and
next
take it out.
meeting is scheduled for May 19th. I am going to
May
be out of
19th?
town.
Did she say May
May
19th?
9th.
Yeah, this says April.
That's, you were like,
Oh,
oh,
it's
I'm
right after.
dead that
No,
day.
no, no.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but it's after.
So, yeah, so our next meeting is supposed to be on May 19th. I am going to be out of town. And the question is,
Is it the whole week or you back on
Yeah.
that Tuesday or?
we'll be
Do you wanna
back,
propose a
we
couple?
come back on the 21st. We're gonna be
Okay,
back
so
in
we can
Spino
do-
with
When we do the
graduation.
26th?
It's
Memorial
Memorial
Day.
Day.
Memorial Day.
Oh, shit.
So can we just have a co-chair run or
Yeah.
a vice chair?
Yeah.
So
I mean, the other.
is that the item we removed?
So,
But by that point in time, we should have,
No.
no,
No, have another
we have
meeting.
we have to have the meeting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can do it remotely. I'm going to be back east. I'm gonna be 3 hours ahead of you guys. So anything that we've been doing on that day is gonna be over.
What do we need to do? Can we skip? I mean, is there,
Yeah.
do we need to do, what were you planning
Is
to
there
have on
thing
that
casting?
agenda?
No.
I mean, we
I mean, we're
can't
gonna
do
bring
it if we
feedback.
don't have a public, someone from PBNR, and
Yeah,
if
that's
you're,
Tuesday, the 27th.
we wouldn't have a quorum.
Yeah. 27th.
Why pretend?
I mean,
Skip the meeting.
Or, yeah.
And do
yeah.
it.
So
I mean, we would still have a quorum if we had the four of us. It would still be a quorum.
Oh,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're down 2 members today.
I'm just worried if we skip May.
well, then let's not
the
skip it, we'll do it.
summer,
I mean,
yeah,
can we do the meeting on the 27th, Tuesday, the
Yeah.
27th of May?
The next day,
May
no, the weekend.
27th,
The next week.
Tuesday, May
I don't-
20 Tuesday, May 27th.
I can't think of
Tuesdays
anything
really
about
don't
May
work
right
for
now.
me.
Oh,
But I,
would be after your. event.
right, but I make, yeah, I don't know how long I stay, but go for it.
Tuesdays really don't work for me.
I'm not gonna commit.
Unless we do them earlier.
I mean, somebody else could volunteer to just facilitate that meeting.
Yeah,
I know with like park and rec commissions, we have chair, vice chair and secretary, and the secretary will facilitate if the other 2 are out. I don't know if that's the same, if that's the same.
think
for
we
public
have-
No,
art.
we don't
I think
have that.
just
we don't
chair,
have a
vice chair.
secretary.
Right.
And does it have to be run by a chair or vice chair?
I mean.
I don't know if there's anything that says that it does.
We're a subcommittee. I think we can do this. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know. Why don't we just do it and we'll have the
If you
meeting.
feel like you have it in you that day.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
you'll check in, and if you don't wanna check in, we'll just
Then Camille's
continue.
volunteering herself.
We'll just run through, I mean, I would
It's not that
prefer doing that than waiting a week because,
Reschedule.
I can't, yeah,
Same. I'm
Yeah.
getting closer and closer to my big event and I'm like,
I can't
Getting really
promise
stressed out.
where my head's at,
Well, May 19th is gonna be the Monday after your.
Yeah,
performance.
which is fine. I'm just saying, I would be cleaning up and ready to go. It's the week after if I want, if
She's
I've said
done.
I'm getting out of.
she's
town.
out of here. That's how I feel. I'm like,
Yeah.
get me out of
I'm
this.
out of
place.
here now. That's all I'm saying.
Too, you can just like help, you know, as a smear or.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not,
Later.
3 hours later, I'm gonna be on the East Coast.
It's gonna be starting at 8:15 for her.
So
That's
it'll
too
be
late.
fast. Like I'm saying, like.
No,
anything that
yeah.
we're Probably. gonna-
I'm saying, don't worry about it.
Yeah, just skip it.
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
It's gonna be a light meeting anyway.
Like I said, yeah.
Program without, yes.
We won't make it.
Comments ahead of time, yeah.
It was with me in Mexico.
Unless you feel like it's a really short, ends up being really short agenda and you're like, let's all commit to get out of here in 45 minutes.
Yeah,
We'll make it fast.
I mean, I don't know that we have a terrific amount.
It's just really bringing back these two items.
yeah.
And then.
What two items?
The
Ordinance
priorities
update
and
The
and
priorities.
the
The priority updates.
Okay,
And
like
then we're gonna
the
read all-
red line.
The red,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then we're gonna reorder the 1 to 3 year all into one, not categorized in this.
And we're not gonna do the 4 to 7. Okay, you got it.
Boom.
Boom.
All
Thank you,
right.
Con- oh, we need to close. Okay.
Not
Not. Okay.
yet.
Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.